In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to do all the uppercase letters in this fun faux calligraphy style. So let's jump in. So if we go back to the workbook, you'll notice that there are all of these uppercase letters as well. So that's page 8 through 9. So we'll walk through those really quickly. And these are not based on the basic strokes. So I'm just going to be showing you how I draw them, like the direction they go. But they're not based on the basic strokes. They're a little bit different in that way. And then of course over here we've got an all caps version of faux calligraphy. It's the same concept. Anytime you're moving your pen down, you're going to add the thickness. I'm not going to walk you through each of these today, but they are there as a reference. And then of course we've got some decorative elements to give you a few ideas. And then we've got different envelope addressing examples for you in case you need some ideas for all the awesome stationery that came in your box. So let's go through really quickly all of these capital letters because I just want to give you a good basis for how to draw them, even though they're not based on the basic stroke. So I'm going to set aside my practice sheet, and I'm really just going to need page 8 is where we're going to be starting. So you guys, of course, you can put your tracing paper on the top. That's going to help you build that muscle memory. For me, I'm just going to draw right into the workbook so you can see what we're doing. So for this one, I do like that you can see the monoline version and the thickness because that will help you know how to draw it too, because you're going to know you have to move down if there's a thickness. So for this one, I'm going to start with drawing this part of the A, and then I'm going to come over here. I'm doing a bigger loop and then a smaller loop and then cross the A. So we're moving our pen down on this side, we're moving our pen down here, and we're moving our pen down here. For the letter B, this one we have kind of this stylized downstroke that has some curves. Then we've got kind of like an O form shape and another one. And you can see mine turned out way bigger on that one. Let's see if we can get it a little more dainty like the example. So we're moving our pen down here on this side, and this side is where our thickness would be. For the letter C, I'm going to show you a little trick with this one. I don't start with this loop. I just start it like a regular C, and I'll add that, and then I'll come back and add this. For some reason, it's just really hard for me to go this way, but the way to add the thickness is still going to be all on this side. For some reason, it's just a little trickier, see, for me to get that loop right. So even though I'm not drawing it down on that side, I still need to add the thickness there. Just for some reason, it's easier for me to draw it that direction. The letter D, this one has that same little stylized downstroke as the B. And then we've got a big loop and come back. So here's our thickness, and here's our thickness. For the letter E, we've got 2 curves and then a little loop. So we add our thickness on this side, and here. So small loop or curve and then a loop at the end. And you can kind of change how curved you do the loops versus not curved. Will kind of change the look of those. For the letter F, this one is going to be kind of a downstroke with a little curve. And we'll cross it. That would be with our crossbars. So we're adding our thickness here, and we could add a tiny bit there. For the letter G, this again is like the C where I add that top little curve and loop later. So I draw it like the lowercase g, and then I just add that. So I leave this open. and then I'll add the thickness here, here, and here. So again, we're just not going to connect it all the way because we want to leave room for that little curve and loop. The other thing that's fun about faux calligraphy, you notice I did a lot of thickness on this one where the other ones have not been as thick. And so that's something that's really fun. Like we could add even more thickness. You can add as much as you want, and it can really create a different style and look to your lettering. So from here, we're done with that page, so we can set it aside, and we'll go on to the letter H. So this one has a little stylized upstroke, and then we're moving down into a double loop, come up to another loop, and back down. So this one is very loopy. Of course, a much simpler version, you could just do an H like that. This would be thick and this would be thick. You could also do something where you, instead of double loops, you just do single loops. That seems to be a little bit easier as well. But those are a few options on your H's. Your I, these ones are a little bit tricky because it's like, I don't know what a cursive I looks like, but this is how you do it with lettering. Capital I's don't seem to be quite as common as other letters. J is very similar, except we want this to be more loopy, and we're adding a descending loop and upstroke. So this whole area on that side is where we're adding our thickness. For K, I like to start with the downstroke first, and then I'll add those two portions, and then I'll come back to add that one. I think you have a little more room for exploring and changing kind of the order. We don't want to really change the direction that often, because then that will mess up our thicknesses and our thinness. But I often will add like these little entry strokes or the tails or the extra flourishes. I'll often add those at the end. L, the same thing that I did with the G and the C. I'm going to start it like this, and then I'll add my loop afterward. But I still need to add my thicknesses on those sides. Sometimes it's just hard to gauge starting from here and working around. Okay, M, this one will start with an upstroke. And you can see this is slightly a curved line, but you could also just do it straight if you wanted to. And then this one, what I like to do, I'll do that first, and then I'll come back for the loop. That just makes it a little bit easier than trying to start this way. So for our thicknesses, we've got the center, and we've got this whole side. N, we've got an upstroke, we've got a downstroke, and then we're going up into a double loop. That could be a single loop, up to you. From here, we turn our paper over. We're on page 10 now. The O is going to be very similar to a lowercase o. We're doing an O form, just really big, but we're coming back in and adding that comma dot. So it creates a loop on the O. So something like this. You could also, if you don't lift up, you could do something like this as well, where it's like a double line. That looks pretty for a capital O. For P, this is going to be similar to the D and the B, where we've got that kind of stylized downstroke. And again, we come around with that big loop. So the B, the D, and the P all kind of have that same thing something happening. So hopefully the more you practice it, the easier it will be. And we have to add a thickness to this side of the P as well. A Q. Q's, you can just add the thickness to this side and then you'll add a little curve here. Or, like the example, I added a thickness to both sides. And I think that looks nice for the Q. R, kind of a stylized downstroke into a double loop. Got that big curve and the underturn, and we'll add our thicknesses. There's our arm. S, this one's kind of similar to the lowercase. We're just adding a loop at the top, and then we're adding a double loop here. So this whole capital letters, they are very loopy, which I think is just fun, but that means it does take some more practice to kind of feel comfortable drawing them. You could do something as simple as that for a capital S. A lot of times I'll just take what the lowercase version is and make it big, and that is my capital. So that's an easy alternative. For this one, it's similar to the F. We've got kind of a downstroke with a curve, and then we're just going to cross the top. So downstroke with the curve, and we're moving down a little bit here and in the center. For U, this one's similar to lowercase. We're doing an underturn and an underturn. I'm just adding this little stylized loop here. We just had that. Which letter was that? I'm trying to remember. But we had that same little entry stroke. So an underturn, and a little entry loop to make it cute. All right, we can set that page aside. We're going on to page 11. We've got only a few more letters left. Next is V. This one we've got a nice big kind of curve. So this is similar, if I cover that up, it's similar to a compound curve here. We're just making it more curvy for that entry. And then we add that thickness anytime we're moving down. W, we're going to come kind of a curved downstroke, upstroke, downstroke. I will say this one is always tricky for me. Whoops. So something like that. That one's a little wonky. I don't feel good about that one. Okay. The thing, there's these slight curves in the W, but they're just hard to draw. So I'm like, maybe let's try one where it's just straight, because even I have a hard time. So maybe it's something more like this. So it's not as complicated. We're not trying to get all those slight curves in there. I feel better about that one. And it's easier. So let's go with this. X. This is going to be similar where we're doing a compound curve here and our upstroke. We're just going to add a loop onto that. Then we'd add our thickness here. So again, a compound curve, an upstroke, and a small loop. For the letter Y, it's basically like the lowercase y. We just got a much bigger underturn, and then we've got kind of that little entry stroke again with the loop. So big underturn, descending loop, upstroke, and then a little entry loop. And last we've got Z. So this one I'm just going to draw it like that, and then I'm going to come back to add that loop. And it wasn't quite as ovally as I wanted it, so something like that. So that is all of the uppercase letters. So I hope that helps letting you know the direction to draw them.